The year was 2250, and humanity had just achieved what many had thought impossible: faster than light travel. The stars, once so distant, were now within reach. But as Earth celebrated this monumental achievement, they were unaware that they had just stepped onto a galactic stage far grander and more dangerous than they could have imagined. Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth exploration vessel Horizon stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the swirling vortex of hyperspace outside the viewscreen. Exiting FTL in 3, 2, 1. The ship shuddered slightly as it returned to normal space. What greeted them was not the empty void they expected, but a massive, gleaming spacecraft unlike anything they had ever seen. "My God," whispered First Officer Ravul Patel. "We're not alone." The alien vessel dwarfed the horizon, its sleek design speaking of technology far beyond Earth's capabilities. As the crew watched in awe, a transmission crackled through their comms. The language was unintelligible, but the tone was clear: surprise, followed quickly by dismissal. Unbeknownst to the humans, the Imperial scout ship had just encountered what they considered a primitive species barely worth noting. Captain Zixnera, a veteran of the Galactic Empire's expansion force, sneered at the crude vessel before him. "Another insignificant race," he muttered. "Log their coordinates, and let's move on." But one of his officers, Lieutenant Kale, felt differently. As he studied the readings from the human ship, his eyes widened. "Sir," he said hesitantly, "their power output. It's unlike anything we've seen from a newly spacefaring race." Zixnera waved him off. "Irrelevant. The Empire will deal with them if necessary." As the Imperial ship prepared to leave, Kale made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. He secretly beamed a message to the human vessel, using a rudimentary translation algorithm. On the horizon, the crew was startled when their computer suddenly spoke. "Humans of Earth, heed this warning. Run. Hide. You're not ready for what's coming." The message sent shockwaves through Earth's leadership. Emergency meetings were called, debates raged, and the planet was thrown into a frenzy of activity. Some argued for heeding the warning, to hide and buy time. Others insisted on standing their ground, unwilling to cower before an unseen threat. In the end, a compromise was reached. Earth would prepare for war while attempting diplomacy. The newly formed United Earth Defense Force worked tirelessly, advancing technology at an unprecedented rate. Shipyards that once built exploration vessels now churned out warships. Scientists who dreamed of peaceful contact now designed weapons capable of destroying planets. But it wasn't enough. Just 6 months after first contact, long-range sensors detected a massive fleet entering the solar system. The Galactic Empire, viewing Earth as a potential threat to be eliminated, had dispatched an armada to subjugate or destroy humanity. Admiral Jane Rodriguez, commander of Earth's defensive fleet, stood aboard her flagship, the EDF Defiant. Around her, officers worked feverishly at their stations. The enemy fleet vastly outnumbered them, but humanity had a few tricks up its sleeve. "All ships, this is Admiral Rodriguez," she broadcast to the fleet. "We may be outnumbered, we may be outgunned, but we will not go quietly into the night. We are humanity, and we will show these aliens why they should have taken that warning seriously. All ships, prepare for battle." As the Imperial fleet entered weapons range, confident in their swift victory, they were met with a surprise. The humans, using technology reverse-engineered from the warning message, launched a devastating first strike. Prototype phase-shift torpedoes bypassed Imperial shields, destroying several ships before they could react. The battle raged, stars obscured by explosions and weapons fire. Against all odds, the human fleet held its ground, their desperation and ingenuity allowing them to punch far above their weight. As the first day of combat drew to a close, both sides withdrew to regroup. The Imperials were shocked by their losses, while the humans celebrated their unexpected success. But this was just the beginning. The real war was about to start, and the fate of humanity hung in the balance. On Earth, as news of the battle spread, a mix of fear and determination gripped the population. They had bloodied the nose of a galactic superpower, but at what cost? And what would come next? As governments worldwide instituted emergency measures, one thing became clear: humanity's age of innocence was over. The stars had brought not wonder, but war, and Earth would never be the same again. The day after the first battle, Earth was buzzing with activity. In New York, the United Nations building had become the center of global operations. Leaders from every nation gathered to discuss the next steps in humanity's fight for survival. Admiral Rodriguez stood before the assembly, her uniform still bearing scorch marks from the previous day's battle. "We've won the first round," she said, her voice echoing through the hall. "But the war is far from over." As if to punctuate her words, an aide rushed in with urgent news. "Admiral, our long-range scanners have detected more Imperial ships entering the solar system." The room erupted into chaos. Fear and determination battled on the faces of Earth's leaders. Rodriguez raised her hand for silence. "This is what we prepared for," she said calmly. "It's time to implement Operation Hornet's Nest." Meanwhile, in the depths of space, the Imperial fleet regrouped. Admiral Zexnox, a battle-hardened veteran of 100 campaigns, seethed with anger. Never in his long career had he faced such resistance from a supposedly primitive species. How? He demanded of his staff. How did these humans inflict such damage? His chief scientist, a spindly alien named Qualthy, stepped forward. "Sir, we've analyzed their weapons. They appear to have reverse-engineered some of our technology." Zexnox's eyes narrowed. "Impossible. Unless..." His gaze swept the room, landing on the now empty chair where Lieutenant Kell should have been. "Find that traitor," he roared. Back on Earth, in a secret underground facility, Lieutenant Kell worked feverishly alongside human scientists. His warning had given Earth a fighting chance, and now he was determined to help them survive. Dr. Emily Wong, head of Earth's Sinotechnology Division, looked over Kell's shoulder at the schematics on the screen. "If this works," she said, excitement in her voice, "we might just have a chance." Kell nodded grimly. "It has to work. The Empire won't stop until Earth is either subjugated or destroyed." As they worked, Operation Hornet's Nest began. Earth's fleet, vastly outnumbered, initiated a series of hit-and-run attacks. They would strike at the edges of the Imperial fleet, then quickly retreat to the cover of Earth's new planetary shield. Admiral Rodriguez watched from the bridge of the EDF, defiant as another successful raid concluded. "Like poking a hornet's nest with a stick," she muttered. Her second-in-command, Captain Chen, looked concerned. "But what happens when the hornets come swarming out?" Rodriguez's face was grim. "Then we better have one hell of a can of bug spray ready." The raids continued for days, frustrating the Imperial forces. Admiral Zexnox grew increasingly furious as his mighty armada was picked apart by what he saw as insignificant pests. "Enough," he finally roared. "Prepare the planet Cracker. We'll wipe this infestation out once and for all." The planet Cracker, a massive ship capable of shattering worlds, moved into position. On Earth, panic spread as the threat became clear. In the underground lab, alarms blared. Dr. Wong looked at the incoming data with horror. "They're going to destroy the entire planet." Kell's alien features set in determination. "Not if we can finish this in time." He turned back to their work, fingers flying over the controls. As the planet Cracker charged its main weapon, Earth's fleet made a desperate last stand. Ships big and small threw themselves at the massive vessel, trying to breach its powerful shields. Admiral Rodriguez gripped her command chair tightly. "We just need to buy a little more time," she said, watching as human ships exploded one after another against the planet Cracker's defenses. Just as all seemed lost, a transmission came through from Earth. Dr. Wong's face appeared on the screen, excitement shining in her eyes, despite her obvious exhaustion. "Admiral, it's ready. Operation Bug Spray is a go." Rodriguez allowed herself a small smile. "You heard the doctor," she said to her crew. "Let's show these Imperials why you don't mess with Earth." As the Planet Cracker's weapon reached full charge, a swarm of small drone-like devices suddenly burst from Earth's atmosphere. They swarmed around the Imperial ships, seeming to do nothing at first. Then, one by one, the mighty vessels of the Galactic Empire began to lose power. Admiral Zexnox watched in disbelief as his fleet went dark around him. "What is happening?" he demanded. On the Defiant, Rodriguez watched with grim satisfaction. "Looks like our bug spray works after all," she said quietly. The battle wasn't over, but for the first time since the war began, hope blossomed in the hearts of humanity. They had stood against the might of a galactic empire, and against all odds, they were still standing. As the disabled Imperial ships drifted in space, the people of Earth cheered. But Rodriguez and those in command knew the truth. This was just the beginning. The real war was about to start, and the fate of humanity still hung in the balance. The vast emptiness of space was now filled with the silent hulks of Imperial warships. Earth's innovative bug spray technology had worked better than anyone had dared to hope, disabling the mighty Galactic Armada. But the war was far from over. Admiral Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the EDF Defiant, her eyes fixed on the main view screen. "Status report," she commanded. Captain Chen responded quickly. 80% of the Imperial fleet is disabled, Admiral. The remaining 20% are retreating to the outer solar system. Rodriguez nodded, a grim smile on her face. "And the Planet Cracker?" "Completely neutralized," Chen confirmed. "Our boarding teams are securing it as we speak." For the first time in weeks, Rodriguez allowed herself to relax slightly. They had won a significant victory, but she knew the Empire wouldn't give up so easily. Meanwhile, on the crippled Imperial flagship, Admiral Zexnox raged at his subordinates. "How?" he roared. "How did these primitives defeat our superior technology?" A nervous officer stepped forward. "Sir, we've analyzed the devices they used. They're based on our own tech, but modified in ways we never considered." Zexnox's eyes narrowed. "The traitor," he hissed. "Find Kale. I'd want him brought before me, alive." Back on Earth, in the underground lab, Kale and Dr. Wong were celebrating their success with the rest of the science team. The alien's tentacles waved with excitement as he examined the data streaming in. "Incredible," he said. "Your species' ability to innovate is unlike anything I've seen in the Empire." Dr. Wong smiled, but her eyes were serious. "We had a good teacher," she said, nodding to Kale. "But what happens now? The Empire won't just give up, will they?" Cal's expression darkened. "No," he said quietly. "This is just the beginning." As if to confirm his words, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Dr. Wong rushed to a nearby console. "Multiple hyperspace signatures detected," she reported, her voice tense. It's another Imperial fleet. In orbit around Earth, the human fleet scrambled to regroup. Admiral Rodriguez barked orders from the Defiance Bridge. "All ships, battle stations. Prepare for incoming hostiles." The sky lit up as hundreds of Imperial ships dropped out of hyperspace. Leading them was a massive vessel that dwarfed even the Planet Cracker. Its hull bristled with weapons, and its very presence seemed to dim the stars around it. On its bridge stood Grand Admiral Zalvex, one of the Empire's most decorated commanders. He looked at the disabled Imperial ships with disdain. "Pathetic," he muttered. Then, louder, "Open a channel to the human fleet." Admiral Rodriguez's face appeared on the view screen. Zalvex smiled coldly. "I am Grand Admiral Zalvex of the Galactic Empire. Your resistance, while impressive for a primitive species, ends now. Surrender, and your deaths will be quick." Rodriguez's expression remained stoic. "We've heard that before," she replied. "Humanity doesn't surrender. We fight." Zalvex's smile widened. "Excellent. I was hoping you'd say that." He cut the transmission, and turned to his crew. Begin the assault. Show these humans the true might of the Empire. The battle that followed was unlike anything Earth had ever seen. The sky burned with weapons fire, and explosions bloomed like deadly flowers in the void. Despite their recent victory, the human fleet found itself overwhelmed by the sheer numbers and firepower of the new Imperial Armada. On Earth, panic spread as reports of the battle came in. In the underground lab, Kale and Dr. Wong worked frantically. "The bug spray won't work again," Kale said, his tentacles moving rapidly over the controls. "They've already adapted." Dr. Wong nodded grimly. "Then we need something new, something they won't expect." As they worked, the battle raged above. Human ships fought valiantly, but one by one, they fell to the Imperial onslaught. Admiral Rodriguez watched with growing despair as her fleet was decimated. "We need a miracle," she murmured. Just then, a transmission came through from Earth. It was Dr. Wong, her face streaked with sweat and grime. "Admiral," she said, excitement breaking through her exhaustion, "we have an idea, but it's risky." Rodriguez looked at the battle raging around her ship. "At this point, Doctor," she said, "I'll take any risk. What's the plan?" As Dr. Wong began to explain, a spark of hope ignited in Rodriguez's eyes. It was crazy, it was dangerous, but it just might work. And right now, it was humanity's only chance. The tide of battle was turning against Earth, but the war was far from over. In labs and command centers across the planet, humanity prepared to unleash its most audacious plan yet. The Empire thought they had the humans on the ropes, but they were about to learn a harsh lesson. Never underestimate the ingenuity and determination of a species fighting for its survival. The space around Earth was a graveyard of broken ships and shattered dreams. The new Imperial fleet, led by the fearsome Grand Admiral Zalvex, had pushed humanity to the brink of defeat. But in the depths of an underground lab, a desperate plan was taking shape. Dr. Emily Wong stood before a holographic display, her eyes intense as she explained the plan to Admiral Rodriguez and the other military leaders. Beside her, Cal's tentacles moved nervously. "We call it Project Phoenix," Dr. Wong said. "It's based on the principle of turning an enemy's strength against them." Admiral Rodriguez leaned forward, her face etched with concern. "How does it work?" Cal stepped forward. "The Empire's ships are connected through a complex network. It's what allows them to coordinate so effectively in battle. But it's also a weakness we can exploit." Dr. Wong nodded. "We've developed a virus. Once uploaded into their network, it will turn their ships against each other." A murmur ran through the assembled leaders. It was audacious, maybe even impossible. But they were out of options. "How do we deliver this virus?" Rodriguez asked. Dr. Wong and Kale exchanged glances. "That's the risky part," Kale said quietly. "Someone needs to infiltrate the Imperial flagship and upload it directly." Silence fell over the room. It was a suicide mission, and everyone knew it. After a moment, Rodriguez stood up. "I'll do it," she said firmly. Protests erupted, but she silenced them with a raised hand. "This is our last chance. I won't ask anyone to take a risk I'm not willing to take myself." As preparations for the mission began, the battle above Earth continued to rage. Grand Admiral Zalvex watched with cold satisfaction as the human fleet was slowly but surely overwhelmed. "Pitiful," he muttered. "To think these primitives gave Zexnox so much trouble." Suddenly, alarms blared across his ship. "What is it?" he demanded. An officer responded, panic in his voice. "Sir, we've detected a small craft approaching at high speed. It's on a collision course." Zalvex's eyes widened. Impossible. No pilot could navigate through this battlefield at those speeds. But the impossible was happening. A small, sleek ship darted between the massive Imperial vessels, dodging weapons fire with inhuman precision. Inside the ship, Admiral Rodriguez gripped the controls tightly. The ship wasn't controlled by her, but by an AI developed specifically for this mission. Her job would start once they reached the flagship. Approaching target, the AI's calm voice announced, "Prepare for impact." Rodriguez gritted her teeth as the ship slammed into the hull of the Imperial flagship. Emergency systems kicked in, keeping her alive as the ship burrowed deep into the enemy vessel. On the bridge of his ship, Zalvex roared in fury, "Find that ship. Destroy it." But it was too late. Rodriguez was already inside, moving swiftly through the alien corridors. The ship's layout had been memorized from Cal's intel, and she moved with purpose towards the central computer core. Back on Earth, Dr. Wong and Cal watched anxiously as Rodriguez's life signs blinked on a monitor. "She's in," Wong whispered. In space, the battle took an unexpected turn. The human fleet, which had been on the verge of defeat, suddenly rallied. Led by Captain Chen on the Defiant, they launched a ferocious attack on the Imperial flagship. "What are they doing?" Zalvex demanded. "They must know it's futile." But the humans weren't trying to win. They were buying time. In the heart of the flagship, Rodriguez finally reached the computer core. Imperial troops were closing in, their weapons fire echoing through the corridors. With shaking hands, she plugged in the device containing the virus. Come on," she muttered as the upload began. Just as the troops rounded the corner, the upload completed. Rodriguez smiled grimly as she raised her weapon. She might not make it out alive, but her mission was accomplished. Suddenly, the flagship shuddered. On the bridge, Zalvex watched in horror as his ships began to turn on each other. "What's happening?" he roared. But no one had an answer. Chaos erupted as the mighty Imperial fleet tore itself apart. From the Defiant, Captain Chen watched in awe. "It worked," he breathed. "It actually worked." As the Imperial fleet dissolved into chaos, a cheer went up from the human ships. Against all odds, humanity had turned the tide once again. But the victory was bittersweet. As the Defiant approached the now crippled Imperial flagship, one question hung heavy in the air. Had Admiral Rodriguez survived? The battle was won, but the war was far from over, and the cost of victory was yet to be fully counted. The space around Earth was eerily quiet. The remains of the once mighty Imperial fleet drifted silently, a testament to humanity's unexpected victory. But aboard the EDF Defiant, the mood was far from celebratory. Captain Chen stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the looming hulk of the Imperial flagship. "Any sign of Admiral Rodriguez?" he asked, his voice tight with worry. The communications officer shook her head. "No response to our hails, sir. But we're detecting faint life signs in the central section of the ship." Chen nodded grimly. "Prepare a rescue team. I'll lead it myself." As the Defiant docked with the crippled Imperial vessel, back on Earth, the aftermath of the battle was just beginning to sink in. Dr. Emily Wong and Cal worked tirelessly in their lab, analyzing the data streaming in from the defeated Imperial ships. "This is incredible," Dr. Wong murmured, her eyes wide as she studied the holographic displays. "The level of technology. It's beyond anything we've ever seen." Cal nodded, his tentacles waving in what seemed to be excitement. The Empire has been the dominant force in the galaxy for millennia, but they've grown complacent. They never expected a primitive species to challenge them like this. Suddenly, an alert flashed on one of the screens. Dr. Wong leaned in, her brow furrowed. "That's odd. There's some kind of encrypted transmission coming from the Imperial flagship. It's not like anything else we've seen." Cal moved closer, his alien eyes narrowing as he studied the data. That's impossible," he whispered. Meanwhile, aboard the Imperial flagship, Captain Chen and his team moved cautiously through the darkened corridors. The ship's emergency systems cast an eerie red glow, and the sounds of their footsteps echoed ominously. "Life signs are stronger," one of the team reported. Just ahead. They rounded a corner and froze. There, in what appeared to be the ship's central computer core, was Admiral Rodriguez. She was slumped against a console, her uniform torn and bloodied, but very much alive. Admiral. Chen rushed forward, relief evident on his face. Rodriguez looked up, a weak smile on her face. Took you long enough, Captain, she said, her voice hoarse. As Chen helped her to her feet, Rodriguez's expression turned serious. We need to get back to Earth immediately. There's something you all need to see. Back in the lab, Dr. Wong and Kale had made a startling discovery. The encrypted transmission wasn't just a message. It was a key to vast stores of hidden data within the Imperial network. It's a history, Kale explained, his voice filled with awe. Not just of the Empire, but of the entire galaxy. And humanity. Humanity is part of it. Just then, the door to the lab slid open. Admiral Rodriguez walked in, supported by Captain Chen. Despite her injuries, her eyes were bright with determination. Dr. Wong, Kale, she said, nodding to each of them. I see you found it too. Dr. Wong looked at her in surprise. You know about this? Rodriguez nodded. I saw glimpses of it when I uploaded the virus. It's why I stayed behind. I needed to make sure we got this information. She turned to Kale, her expression grave. You're not just a defector, are you? You're part of something bigger. Kale's tentacles writhed nervously. You're right, he admitted. I'm part of a group within the Empire. We've been working for centuries to bring about change. We believe the Empire has lost its way, become tyrannical, and we believe humanity might be the key to setting things right. The room fell silent as the implications of his words sank in. It was Captain Chen who finally spoke. What do you mean? Humanity is the key. Kale moved to the holographic display, bringing up images that made everyone gasp. They showed humans, or beings that looked remarkably like humans, standing alongside various alien species. But the timestamps on the images were thousands, even millions of years old. Humanity isn't just a newly spacefaring race, Kale explained. You're the descendants of an ancient, highly advanced civilization. A civilization that once stood as equals with the founders of the Empire. Dr. Wong's eyes were wide with disbelief. But how? Why don't we remember? We don't know, Kale admitted. Something happened. A great catastrophe that nearly wiped out your species and sent you back to the Stone Age. The Empire took advantage of this, hiding the truth and rewriting history. Admiral Rodriguez straightened, wincing slightly from her injuries. And now the truth is out, she said firmly. The question is, what do we do with it? As they stood there, the weight of this revelation heavy on their shoulders, they knew that the war had just taken an unexpected turn. The battle for Earth was won, but a much larger conflict loomed on the horizon. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting to reclaim their forgotten legacy and reshape the future of the galaxy. The news of humanity's ancient legacy spread like wildfire across Earth. In every city on every continent, people gathered around screens, their faces a mix of awe, disbelief, and excitement. Humanity, once thought to be a young species taking its first steps into the stars, was in fact the heir to an ancient and powerful civilization. In a secure conference room deep beneath the United Nations building in New York, Admiral Rodriguez, Captain Chen, Dr. Wong, and Kale sat with world leaders. The atmosphere was tense, filled with a mixture of hope and uncertainty. So, the U.S. President began, her eyes fixed on Kale. You're saying that we're not just fighting for our survival, but for our birthright. Kale's tentacles rippled in what they had come to recognize as a nod. Exactly. The Empire has hidden the truth for millennia. But now it's time for humanity to reclaim its place in the galaxy. The Chinese premier leaned forward, his brow furrowed. But how do we do that? We may have won a battle, but we're still technologically outmatched by the Empire. Admiral Rodriguez stood up, wincing slightly from her still healing injuries. That's where this comes in, she said, gesturing to a small, glowing cube on the table. This contains the data we recovered from the Imperial flagship. It's not just history, it's technology. The lost knowledge of our ancestors. Dr. Wong stepped in, her eyes shining with excitement. We've only begun to scratch the surface, but what we found is incredible. Faster than light travel, energy manipulation, even matter creation. Technologies that make our current science look like stone tools in comparison. A murmur ran through the room. The possibilities were staggering. But we must act quickly, Kale warned. The Empire will not take this defeat lightly. They will return, and in greater numbers. The room fell silent as the weight of his words sank in. Then, slowly, the Russian president stood up. Then we must be ready, he said firmly. We must unite as never before, pool our resources, our best minds. We must become what we once were. One by one, the other leaders nodded in agreement. For the first time in human history, the entire world was truly united in a common cause. As the meeting concluded and plans were set in motion, Admiral Rodriguez pulled Cal aside. "There's still something I don't understand," she said quietly. "Why did you choose to help us? Why betray your own people?" Cal's alien features seemed to soften. "Because they're not truly my people," he said. "I am what you might call a sleeper agent. My memories were suppressed, my body altered. I am one of you, Admiral. A human from the past, sent forward in time to help when the moment was right." Rodriguez stared at him, stunned. Before she could respond, an alarm blared through the building. They rushed to the command center, where Captain Chen was already reviewing incoming data. "We're picking up massive energy signatures at the edge of the solar system," he reported, his voice tense. "It's like nothing we've ever seen before." On the main screen, a swirling vortex of energy appeared. From its depths emerged a ship, but unlike any they had seen before. It was enormous, easily dwarfing even the largest Imperial vessels, and it seemed to shimmer and shift as if it wasn't fully in this reality. "By the stars," Cal whispered, his eyes wide. "It's an Ark ship, one of the last vessels of ancient humanity, thought to be lost forever." As they watched, a transmission came through. The face that appeared on the screen was humanoid, but with an otherworldly quality that spoke of eons of evolution and advancement. "People of Earth," the being said, its voice resonating with power and wisdom, "we have watched and waited for millennia, hoping that you would rediscover your true selves. Now, at last, the time has come. We are the guardians, the caretakers of humanity's legacy, and we have returned to help you reclaim your destiny." The command center erupted in a mix of shock, joy, and trepidation. As Admiral Rodriguez looked around at her fellow humans, she knew that everything was about to change. The war wasn't over. In many ways, it was just beginning. But now, with the lost knowledge of their ancestors and the support of these mysterious guardians, humanity had a real chance not just to survive, but to thrive. The next chapter of human history was about to be written, and it promised to be more extraordinary than anyone could have imagined. The arrival of the Guardian's Ark ship had changed everything. As it hung in Earth's orbit, a shimmering beacon of hope and ancient power, the people of Earth prepared for the final confrontation with the Galactic Empire. In the months that followed, humanity underwent a transformation. With the guidance of the Guardians and the unlocked knowledge from their past, advancements that would have taken centuries were achieved in weeks. Cities were rebuilt with technology that seemed like magic, diseases were eradicated, and the scars of war were slowly healed. Admiral Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the new flagship, the Phoenix, marveling at how far they had come. The ship, a fusion of recovered human technology and Guardian innovations, was more powerful than anything the Empire had ever fielded. "Admiral," Captain Chen called from his station, "the Imperial fleet has been detected. They'll be here within the hour." Rodriguez nodded grimly. "So it begins. Signal the fleet. It's time." As the human fleet took up defensive positions around Earth, the Guardian's Ark ship moved to the forefront. Its presence alone was a statement. Humanity no longer stood alone. The Imperial Armada dropped out of hyperspace, a vast swarm of ships that blotted out the stars. At its center was a vessel that dwarfed all others, its hull crackling with malevolent energy. "By the stars," Cal whispered, his human features etched with worry. "It's the Emperor's personal battleship. He's come himself." Before anyone could respond, a transmission cut through all channels. The face that appeared on the screen was ancient and cruel, its eyes glowing with an unnatural light. "Insignificant humans," the Emperor's voice boomed, "your defiance ends now. Surrender the Ark ship and submit to Imperial rule, or watch your world burn." Admiral Rodriguez stepped forward, her voice steady as she replied, "We've submitted to your lies for too long. Emperor, humanity remembers its true heritage, and we will never surrender again." The Emperor's face contorted with rage. "Then you will die, as your ancestors did before you." The space between the fleets erupted in a storm of weapons fire. Imperial ships surged forward, met head-on by the human fleet. But this was not the one-sided battle the Empire had expected. Human ships, powered by rediscovered technology, danced between Imperial volleys. Weapons that bent space-time itself tore through enemy shields. And at the center of it all, the Phoenix and the Ark ship moved as one, a spearhead driving towards the Emperor's battleship. On Earth, Dr. Wong and a team of scientists worked feverishly in a secret facility. "The awakening protocol is at 95%, she reported into her comm. "We need just a few more minutes." In space, the battle raged on. Despite humanity's new strength, the sheer numbers of the Imperial fleet were taking their toll. Ships on both sides fell, adding their wreckage to the deadly dance. "We can't hold them much longer," Captain Chen reported, his uniform singed from a near miss. Just then, Cal's console lit up. "Admiral, we're detecting massive energy spikes from Earth." On the surface of the planet, long-dormant machines buried beneath the Earth began to awaken. In deserts, beneath oceans, and under ice caps, ancient facilities hummed to life. A web of energy began to spread across the globe, connecting these points in a complex pattern. In orbit, the Emperor watched in disbelief as Earth itself began to change. The planet's surface shifted, revealing vast structures that had lain hidden for millennia. "Impossible," he breathed. Admiral Rodriguez allowed herself a small smile. "You forgot one thing in your grand plan, Emperor. Earth isn't just our home. It's our greatest weapon." With a flash of blinding light, Earth transformed. The ancient machinery activated fully, enveloping the planet in a shield of pure energy. From its surface, beams of light shot out, targeting the Imperial ships with unerring accuracy. The tide of battle turned in an instant. Imperial ships fell by the dozens, then hundreds. The Emperor's battleship stood alone, its shields failing under the combined assault of the Phoenix, the Ark ship, and the awakened Earth. As the final barriers fell, Admiral Rodriguez's voice echoed across all frequencies. "It's over, Emperor. Humanity has reclaimed its destiny." In a final, desperate act, the Emperor's ship attempted to flee. But it was too late. A concentrated burst of energy from Earth lanced out, obliterating the massive vessel in a spectacular explosion. As the remnants of the Imperial fleet retreated in disarray, cheers erupted across the human ships and on Earth below. Humanity had not just survived, they had triumphed, reclaiming their place among the stars. Admiral Rodriguez looked out at the stars, a mix of emotions on her face. The war was over, but their journey was just beginning. With their recovered heritage and the Guardians at their side, humanity was ready to forge a new future, one of exploration, discovery, and hope. As the fleet began its return to Earth, now transformed into a beacon of ancient power and new possibilities, one thing was clear: the galaxy would never be the same again.